another Tonic craft kit unboxing video. Today's one is for kit number 64, which is called the Terrific Telephone Treat Box. And originally when I heard the name telephone box, I was thinking, oh, it's like a smaller version of the gift box that was shaped like a telephone with a handset on that Tonic did a while ago. It didn't even occur to me that it was actually a telephone box, like a proper London telephone box. So this is what this month's kit creates. I know some of you aren't that keen on three-dimensional projects, but I really love this. I think this is fantastic, and it's going to make like a brilliant home decor item as well. And if you are a fan of telephone boxes, or if you live in like the Greater London, Surrey kind of area, you might have been to Kingston and seen all of the telephone boxes outside Wilkinson's, where you have the first one is standing up, and then there's like, I don't know how many there are, maybe 7 or 8 of them. The other ones are all tilted next to it. If you had the patience to do that much die cutting, and you know someone who lives in Kingston or grew up in Kingston or something, you could create a whole like decor piece to go on their shelf with all of the telephone boxes. I think that would be a fantastic idea. Or those of you who are Doctor Who fans, you might be thinking, actually, you could probably turn that into a TARDIS. I was going to do it, but I ran out of time. But I definitely think, I know the panels wouldn't be correct, but I definitely think you could do a navy blue version, and you could probably get away with like trimming out part of this, maybe going like this to create the windows along the top. I know it wouldn't be completely accurate, but you could get some kind of TARDIS sort of representation from this die set as well. And the great thing about this box is you can make it so that the door opens. There is actually a lock mechanism as well. You can make it magnetic so it stays shut, but because I doubled up lots of the panels on mine to make it really sturdy, it does just stay shut by itself. But you can do the lock mechanism. But not only can you make it open that way, it also opens from the top like a box, and there's 2 different side panels, one that makes the sides and one that makes the one with the door in. So if you just wanted it to open from the top, you can just use 4 of the side panels rather than 3 side panels and a door as well. But I thought I'd just show you first what it actually creates, because I think this month's one is so cool. The fact that it actually creates a 3-dimensional telephone box. And if you had the post box from a while back, they're not quite the right proportions to each other. The telephone box is smaller than the post box, but you could do something cool mixing the 2 of them together. Or I said in my tutorial video, maybe even using the little crown on the post box as well, because I'm sure post boxes do have a little crown on them somewhere. But yeah, you could definitely mix them around and, you know, change it up and stuff. So let's have a look at what's in this month's craft kit. I'll tip all of this out first. So the Nuvo items in this month's kit, you're getting a full-sized Nuvo Glacier paste, and this is the winter white colour, so pure white glacier paste, a really fantastic one to have in your stash because you can change the colour of it if you want to. You can use your Nuvo Shimmer powders or your Aquaflows or any sort of like water-based ink pad. You can squish some of that down first, put some glacier paste into it, mix it up, and colour your glacier paste. So this is a fantastic one to have. So we've got that, a full-sized one, and this is actually what it, if you apply it thinly with one of the Nuvo blending tools that you've got in this kit as well, I'll show you this in the tutorial video, it gives this sort of beautiful effect to just sort of accent some vellum, or you could just do this straight onto your cardstock as well. It doesn't have to just be onto vellum, but really, really pretty effects you can get with that glacier paste. Then, talking about that ink blending tool, you're actually getting 4 replacement foams plus the ink blending tool as well. My tool came with a foam on it, so I'm not sure if you're getting 5 with the tool or whether you're getting 4 plus the tool. I'm not 100% sure, but whatever you're getting, it's a decent amount to use, because you're going to get a set of ink pads in your kit. So you've got 1 sponge for each ink pad, then you can also use 1 sponge for your glacier paste as well, and it doesn't go rock solid, so it's gone a little bit crusty compared to a fresh foam, but I haven't washed this out. If I had washed this out, I'm sure it would have gone back to being really, really squidgy, just like a normal foam. So you can definitely reuse these and use them with some of your Nuvo products as well. Nuvo mousses are also nice to use with your blending tools. However, you definitely would want to wash those out because they do go rock solid when they dry, but that's another way of using your ink blending tools. Then ink pad wise, you're either going to get the Merry and Bright set of ink pads, which has the sliced strawberry, the Moroccan teal, and the marble statue. I love the marble statue colour. It's a very, very light grey, but it's so beautiful for that subtle kind of detail in a background. Or you might also be getting the Principal set of inks, which is actually the Black Shadow, the Metro Grey, and the Clear Mark ink pad. So you could get those three, or you could get these three. So I got these in my kit. So one of the cards I'll show you is using your ink blending tool with these ones, but you could definitely do a monochrome look and use your grey and your black. And in the tutorial video I was using the light grey, but I actually switched over to the dark grey so that you could see it better in the video. So you can definitely sort of use them interchangeably, or if you like the idea that I show you with my Merry and Bright set of ink pads, you can always use colours from your stash as well. It doesn't have to just be the Tonic ink pads that you use for the card that I'm going to show you. So that is the ink pads. Then you're also getting a full-sized Nuvo drop as well. And this one is silver lining. So this is a metallic, sort of proper silver colour. There is also the liquid mercury in the line, which is a much darker kind of metallic silver. But this is the gorgeous lighter, typical silver kind of colour. Really, really pretty, this one, the silver lining. So that is all of the Nuvo stuff that you are getting. Then we've got all of the papers in here as well, or cardstock, and you can see from this selection that you've got beautiful colours to work absolutely perfectly to create your telephone box. I did actually do red on the bottom for my little platform, but you can definitely do black. I don't know if it varies between different telephone boxes. In my mind, I just went for red, but I think maybe some of them are black on the bottom, or you might want to use black for different accents. You might want to do a black telephone box as well as a different quirky kind of take on it. Maybe do a Halloween telephone box. I think this would be fantastic for Christmas because you can bring in like your stone drops, the chalk white stone drops, and add like textured snow on all of these areas on the windows. I think that would look fantastic. You could use these windows elsewhere as well. They don't have to just be on the telephone box. You could use them to create like French windows on a card, or just to have a window and have like a cat looking out of it, or have a scene showing through the window, or you know, whatever you want to do. There's so many elements within this die set that you can use for other things as well, and I will show you the die set in detail. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But cardstock wise, we have got Chilli Red as the classic cardstock, and you get 2 sheets of this, so you've got plenty to make your actual telephone box. And this is the textured one, so it's got that texture on one side, smooth on the other side. Then you've also got 2 sheets of the smooth black 300 GSM cardstock as well. So if you did want to make a black telephone box, you've got a really nice heavyweight cardstock to use. Or if you wanted to really reinforce your telephone box, you could cut maybe the inside reinforcement panels from black, because Tonic often say that the 216 GSM, which is their classic cardstock, isn't strong enough for a lot of constructions, and especially with this one, because you're cutting the windows out of the panels, I did double everything up. So I cut 2 of everything that I needed, and then used another one on the inside to make the inside look really lovely and finished as well, because I also kind of thought with something like a telephone box, especially if you're making it open, you might want to have a character inside there, like Clark Kent or Superman or something, or just like an everyday person making a phone call, or a mouse, or, you know, all sorts of different things you could have inside there. And I just thought making it extra sturdy and nice from the inside as well would be a nice way of doing it. So you can either like double this up, or you could use the thicker black and create a black telephone box. You could even do black and then put like your red kind of mousses over the top of it as well to make it really metallic-y looking, with a darker kind of grungy background to it. So you're getting 2 sheets of each of those ones, so you've got enough to be able to create a full box from them. Then you've also got Frosted Silver Mirror Card, which is a really gorgeous one. I do love this one. I've gone through quite a few packets in my time of this one. This is what I've cut the crown out on this one. So really, really pretty. Die cuts really nicely, and this is their Frosted Mirror Card. I'm going to hold the next mirror card up behind this one so you're not seeing a whole reflection. This is the Ruby Red mirror card, and it's their bright, vibrant, sort of reflects everything sort of a mirror card, and that's what I've used to cut my extra window panels and these top panels on this telephone box. So you've got those two lovely specialty ones. You've also got another specialty one, which is the Pearlescent card in Lunar Silver, and this one is fantastic. That's what I've used on the windows here, and it really looks like, you know, like the light reflecting off of a glass panel and you just can't quite see inside it. It really gives that kind of look. So if you want it to be solid so that you can't see inside it, even though you've made the door open but you don't want to be able to see inside it, then this Lunar Silver is perfect for creating that kind of look. And it is double-sided, so as I was saying about making the inside of mine look really lovely, because I cut these extra pieces here, I stuck these to the Lunar Silver, cut around the edges, and then stuck them over the top. So then when you open it, you still have the crisscross design with the Lunar Silver. So it really looks like the windows are going all the way through, even though you can't see through them. So I thought that was really lovely. But if you don't want to do solid windows, and maybe you want to put a battery operated tea light inside it, you do also get a sheet of vellum as well. This is the pure white vellum, so it's the 100 GSM vellum, the slightly thinner weight, which means you're really going to be able to see a tea light or a coil of fairy lights or something inside your telephone box. And then finally, for extra accents and stuff, you are getting a full sheet of each of these. I just had to pinch half of it because I didn't have much left in my stash. So you're getting, this is Ruby Ritz and this is Black Sapphire in the glitter cardstock. And on the card that I show you in the tutorial video, I used the red glitter card to do the window framing, and I used the black glitter card as accents on it as well. And you can see how nice, like, the difference is between having a white bottom, like plinth, sorry, not a white bottom plinth, the red bottom plinth, or the black bottom plinth as well. You can change it around. And in the tutorial I also show you how you can make the door open the opposite way if you're using it as a flat telephone box as well. So that is all of the cardstock from the kit. Then finally we have got the die set and the stamp set. So let's have a look at the stamp set first. I'll take it out of the packet. You've got this beautiful flourishy design, which I actually used all over my telephone box. So you can just about see that subtle design on there in different areas, just to give it a little bit of extra interest. Originally, I stamped with the sliced strawberry, which was in my little set of inks. However, when this dried, it practically disappeared into the colour of the cardstock. When it was wet, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to show up, and I stamped all of the pieces that I was using, and then as it dried, it just completely disappeared. So in the end, I ended up using Rich Rosewood from my stash of Nuvo ink pads, but if you had the Principal ink set, I'm sure you could get away with using Metro Grey to give a little bit of pattern on there as well. You've also got a beautiful floral design too, which I've used on one of the other cards that I'll show you. A lovely crown, which I didn't end up using in the end, but beautiful little crown. I'm wondering if it might actually work with the solid crown die. It might actually be the same. Yeah, I reckon you could actually cut the stamped image out with the solid crown die that works with that detailed crown die there. I think they've made it the same, so you can actually cut that out with the die. And then you have 3 stamped words that you can use on the top of your telephone box. On this one, I used the word telephone because I really wanted to make it look like a real one. But you can also use well done or have a treat as well, so you could fill it full of sweets too. But you've got those 3 that you could use on there that will fit inside, where is it? The rectangle die that's on here. And I do recommend stamping first and then die cutting, and all of the words you can see through the aperture in the die. So I do recommend stamping first then die cutting, because if you die cut first and then you try and stamp it, the way this die is, because of that metal that's in the middle, it might give an embossed impression onto your cardstock, so you might not get a perfect stamped impression, if you know what I mean. You know, when sometimes the middle is more raised up because of this kind of metal on a die, you then might not be able to stamp it perfectly. So stamp first, wait until your ink is dry, or dry it with a heat tool, and then die cut. That's the best way to do it, and you can see all of the words through there, which is really nice as well. So those are all of the stamps and the dies that coordinate with those stamps as well. And then this is the die set, and you do get instructions in here too, which are really easy to follow. They've got everything you need to know in there, and it also says like only cut this one if you want it to have an opening door, or cut more of these if you don't want the door to open, and stuff like that. And like only cut this piece if you want the windows to be solid, or you know, you could cut this piece from Vellum if you wanted to do that as well. You also have instructions of how to create your locking mechanism, and they've designed this to work perfectly with a 10mm diameter circle like neodymium magnet, or the ones that Tonic sell as well. They work perfectly with a 10mm magnet. And you've got both sides of the instructions. The first side tells you exactly how many of what pieces you're going to need to cut as well. So like these pieces create the lid, and it gives you a drawing of the die. So there are multiple different square dies in here, but on the drawing it shows you that it's the square that has the cutting line right on the very inside edge of it. So it's giving you all that detail you need within the pictures. If it doesn't say it, it's showing you within the pictures, and then it tells you how many to cut out. Like down here it says only cut if you're using the door feature. If not, you would cut this 4 times to get 4 sides, but if you want the door you only need 3 of these and 1 of these. So it gives you all of the details that you need, which is fantastic. So you've got those in there. Then these are all of the dies that create your telephone box, and as I showed you on this card, you can also do a 2D telephone box as well. If you don't want to do something 3-dimensional, you can make it as a 2D telephone box on your card too. So you have the door panel, and you can tell it's the door because there's this little hand hole there, and this has actually got cutting lines along these 3 sides, and then there's a score line down here. Then you also have the side panel. I'm holding these up the wrong way actually. This is the side panel of the telephone box. So if you don't want it to have a door, you would just cut 4 of these ones. If you want it to have a door, you want one with this little notch missing and the extra cut lines in there. The windows on both of these are exactly the same size. So if you want to cut this frame piece that I've done on all of my ones that I've done, you can actually cut multiples of this panel that is supposed to go behind if you want to, you know, put something to cover the inside of the windows. You can cut multiples of these, and then you can use both panels at the same time to then cut the windows into these panels because they're identical. They're exactly the same on both of these. So if you want to cut panels like this to create extra frames to go on your telephone box, you can cut lots of these and then cut 2 at a time with the windows in, which is really lovely because it saves a little bit of time. So those are all of those dies, and this is the way up they go. So this glue tab is the bottom of your telephone box, and the top has a larger area because that's where the lid will sit onto it. And you might be thinking, hang on, there's no glue tabs on either side of these, and that's because they've done it this way instead. They've given you this extra little strip here, which is technically the glue tabs for the sides. The only thing you've got to bear in mind with this is too wide to put on if you want the door. So if you look at this die and you look at the hinge die here, this between the score line and the cut line here is wider than this little piece here. So if you use that as a glue tab, you'd be able to see some of it on the inside. So there's 2 ways around it. You can just stick that on, and then when the door is open, use your scissors to snip away any excess that's showing. Or that worked fine for the open side of the door, but the other side of the door, it's much easier if you just trim this down. So put your adhesive on the side of the hinge and then just use your long bladed pair of scissors or your trimmer to trim that down so that it will just fit behind there and not interfere with the hinge of the door. That's the only thing you've got to think about with this die, is if you're adding the door in, you're going to need to modify your little glue tab die a little bit. Then, to create the sort of base plinth that the telephone box sits on, you'll need 2 of these to create that. And when you put them together, you want these 2 longer dies to be on the outsides. And then when you twist one the opposite way, you want them to be on the outsides. It shows you in the instructions. you can see it's kind of showing you that the shorter piece here is the glue tab, and this is actually the side of the box. So when you turn them up the other way from each other to go inside, you're kind of putting the glue tab one behind wherever the sort of straight edge is, but it does show you that on the instructions, and that's how you create the little plinth. Then, to create the lid of the box, it's this die that has the cutting edge right on the interior of that metal piece, and then you also need 4 of these, which again are acting as your kind of glue tabs, and then you're also going to need 4 of these, which give you that arched top to the top of the telephone box, and it's all of those that create the lid portion of the box. Then you have these 2 pieces as decorative panels. So for example, on this one I cut a mirror card top to my box, and I used that square to do that with. And then you also have this little, kind of looks like the side sliver of an oval, that actually gives that sort of arched piece to the top of the box there, which I think really does look nice. If I show you this box next to the one that I did on the card, I didn't use it on the card, but I did use it on the box. I think it looks really nice if you do use that piece. I think it adds something extra to it, so that looks really cool. Then you have this piece which allows you to cut out all of your sentiments to use on the top of the box, or you actually have 4 other options. So you've actually got, you'd have to cut this piece first and then use these pieces inside because they're longer than the gap that's in the centre, but you have the word telephone that will deboss into your little panel, so you can either stamp it or you can deboss it, whichever you would prefer. Then you also have this one, which I used on the tutorial card, that says just to say. And then you also have these 2, which you would obviously use in conjunction with each other because they say happy birthday. So you can have happy birthday going twice around the top of the phone box as well. So I thought that is really lovely that they've included a generic kind of happy birthday kind of sentiment. And you can also just use them on your card as well, which I'll show you on the card that I've done. Then, no telephone box is complete without a little crown on there. So you've actually got the detailed crown, and then that almost looks like an apple pie or something, but you can use it as a backing behind the die cut crown, or as we just figured out, you can actually use it to die cut your stamped crown as well if you want to use that. And then finally, the last 3 dies that are on here are to create your locking mechanism. So your magnet would sit inside this donut piece that's here, and then you've got this piece to cover it up, and then you've also got this bit that you can actually use on the box. When it cuts out, it would, I think the way it's supposed to go is this bit with the keyhole would stick on the side of the box right near where that handle is, and then this would fold round the front, and that would be your locking mechanism to lock your box with a magnet as well. So you can do that if you want to, but I do find, especially if you've doubled up the strength of the door, it does just stay shut by itself, but it just depends what kind of look you're going for as well. But those are all of the dies. You've seen the dies, the stamps, the papers, all the Nuvo stuff. I'll put all of this away, and then I'll come back and show you in detail the samples that I've done as well. Okay, so this is my 3D one, which I've already shown you multiple times now, but this is what the die set obviously creates, and the fact that you've got all of the different versions to put on the top I think is lovely, and that you've got options for stamping, die cutting and debossing into there as well. I think it's really lovely. And you don't have to just use the rectangle that you're given with this. On the card that I made in the tutorial, I did just cut it with my scissors, so you can definitely do whatever you would rather. But I think it looks fantastic with the actual telephone on there as well, the little crown on the top, and I love that you've got the lid that comes off, so you can just make it just a box, or the fact that you can make it with an opening door as well, and that you could have some kind of character in there. I really think it would be great for a Superman fan, and you could have like a little Clark Kent or a Superman character in there as well, or you know, anybody who works in London. I was saying in the tutorial video, maybe for somebody who works with telephones, maybe they work for like Talk or BT or something. I know you don't necessarily think of a telephone box, but you know, it could be a funny kind of gift to give someone who works with telephones. Even if they work with mobile phones, it'd be funny to give them a telephone box. So you could do all that sort of kind of thing with them. I think turning it into different seasons would be fantastic as well. So like I was saying earlier, doing a black one and making it a Halloween telephone box. Or if you had, I think there's been quite a few actually. There was that milk churn from ages ago. There was the shop windows. I think they're the main two that I'm thinking of. Maybe even one of the staggered stages as well. Had like little pumpkins in. You could do like an autumn themed telephone box. You could definitely do winter themed. You could bring some of the Wilderness Adventures characters in and have like a little fox sitting outside as well. Or a hedgehog walking past or something. You could, if you got they came out really recently. It was a really large oval frame that came with some words, and then it also had a big set of ivy with it as well. Those large things of ivy would look fantastic going around a phone box, because you could make a really like neglected, you know, run down sort of living half out of a bush kind of telephone box as well. Or as I was saying earlier, the sort of Kingston telephone boxes idea as well would be really cool for somebody who lives in that area or grew up in that area as well, especially if you want to go to all that effort. Or you could just make it out of flat ones. You can do the 2D versions and just make like a really long card with all of the knocked over telephone boxes on it. But yeah, really love this, and I think it's going to be a really nice versatile one that you can change for all the different seasons, and with the snow on the window and stuff as well. Yeah, I think this is going to be a really cool one. I must remember about this one, because I tend to put them all on the shelf and then I just completely forget until I film a video and I'm like, oh yeah, we had something that would work with this. But yeah, no, really cool one. I have got everything cut to make myself one, so I do just need to get round to putting that together. But really cool. Then you can also create a two-dimensional telephone box. You could definitely decorate it just like this one. I really like the mirror card accents actually, and the silver crown, but for this one I wanted to go with the glitter card accents, because I wanted to use that beautiful black glitter card inside and for the little plinth on the bottom. And I also decided to do a black crown on this one to give those the extra elements. Now this is the card that I create in my tutorial video, which will be up tomorrow. It is mostly focusing on the background rather than the actual card. It's hard to see, but this is the one I did in the video where I used Metro Grey rather than Marble Statue, and it's just kind of showing you a way of using the ink pads, the glacier paste and the Nuvo drops from the kit to create a background that you could put one of the telephone boxes on top of, or you could do anything else on top of it as well. I just thought it was a nice way of showing you how to use those three Nuvo items together. They are obviously all on the very subtle kind of side because they're greys, whites and silvers, but any other ink pads, glacier pastes or Nuvo drops you have in your stash, you could definitely do this in more of like funky colours as well. It doesn't just have to be very subtle, but I was saying in the tutorial video it could kind of be representative of like London smog, or it could be like people in the distance walking along. It could be like a blur of faces or something. So it could just be a nice little abstract sort of background that goes with the telephone box as well. But yeah, really simple way of using it. And I was also showing how you can add one of your fine tip nozzles onto your Nuvo drops as well, and then this is kind of like the difference. So this was using the silver lining straight from the bottle to do this swirl design, and this was using it with the fine tip applicator on the top, and you can see kind of like the difference. This is going to use more product, this is going to use less product, but this gives a more defined kind of look, whereas this is really subtle. So it kind of depends what you're going for really, but if you have those fine tip nozzles, they are really lovely to use on your Nuvo drops as well. So that was what I've created in the tutorial, just showing you how to put the telephone box together as well, and how to make it open the other way, because the die set is actually this way, the door opens, but I really wanted the door to open the other way, because I just feel like on a card, I feel like I'd want to open something that way. I suppose it's because that's the way a card would normally open. There's me doing it on a top folding card, but a card would normally open that way. So it kind of made me want to put the door opening that way, so I show you in the tutorial how you can kind of flip it around and do it the other way. I don't think you could do it for the actual telephone box unless you well, maybe you could just cut a side panel and use your craft knife and a ruler to cut the door out opening the other way if you really did want it to open the other way on the 3D one as well. But yeah, there's that kind of option of how to do that on a card too. And then the final card that I have done, I know I haven't got that many samples to show you in this, I'm really sorry about that, but the final card that I decided to do was to show you ink blending and the fine tip nozzle on your Nuvo drop bottle as well, another way of using it, because you might be thinking, well, I don't really like that scribbly kind of effect on here, but I like the idea of putting a fine tip nozzle on my bottle. What else could you do with it? So I've kind of sort of decided to show another way of using the fine tip nozzle, just tracing around these stenciled pieces, which is a stencil that I created using one of the side panels of the telephone box. So it works really nicely to create your own stencil. I like to do my stencils like this, where if there's not enough card on the side, because it's, you know, it's a panel to create the side of a telephone box, I take a roll of washi tape. I do quite like using the Tonic ones actually. I take a roll of washi tape and I just take a long piece off, stick it down to the side, and then I pull the same amount off again and fold it back over. So you've got the washi tape on both sides of your stencil, so it's not sticky. You're just using it to extend the cardstock of the stencil. And it just gives a nice like non-slip sort of surface as well. So that's how I created my little stencil, and I thought I would show you it in action as well, and then I can also show you how I use the nozzle here too. And the reason why I went off like this with this dotty kind of effect is because I was drawing with it, and in one area it was going quite well here. I think maybe it was this bit that actually spluttered, but it did this skipping thing, and then I was like, oh, actually I quite like the way it's just skipped. So I actually like tried to recreate that, doing little dots in there, and I think it gives a really cool effect. And then I decided to draw some lines in here as well, because it was giving like a sort of a tartany kind of look, so I thought these lines would look nice. And I also did some overstamping in the marble statue with the little flower stamp. And with these inks, because they're kind of like hybrid inks, they will sort of reactivate each other. So when I stamped in this area with the floral stamp, the stamp had actually picked up a tiny bit of the red pigment, and when I stamped it over here I got a little tiny bit of red in the stamped impression as well. So you can get cool effects like that with them too. It wasn't intentional, but I actually quite like how it's got a little bit of pinky red coming into that area as well. But anyway, I'm supposed to be showing you the ink blending, so let's go just with the sliced strawberry and the Moroccan teal, just because they are deeper colours for you to be able to see on the camera. As I found out in the tutorial, marble statue really doesn't show up much on the camera for you to be able to see. So let's just ink blend this, and because this is a relatively blocky kind of design, you don't necessarily need a stencil brush, you know, like a soft bristled precision blending brush. You can get away with your ink blending tools because it's not too much detail to get into. It's a large kind of area, and you'll also notice there's like a splodge from my ink blending tool. It's not that visible on camera actually, but it evens out nicely when it dries. You won't sort of see a harsh splodge. It does actually even out as it dries, which is nice. It kind of soaks into the card, I think. Then let's do a little bit of the sliced strawberry as well, just to show, you know, how you can sort of build up a different background with your like homemade little stencil. And just do a little bit in a different direction as well. I wouldn't say the colours like layer up perfectly to create a purpley tone, but I mean it is more of a teal than a blue, so you do get a little bit more of like a grey purpley kind of tone as the two colours layer on top of each other. But if you got the principal inks in your kit, you could do grey and black ink blending, and you could even ink blend with your clear mark ink pad and bring out some embossing powders from your stash as well and have some embossed designs in here too. So you can definitely play around with that. But I just thought I'd show you that stencil in action, and then show you how easy it is to use your fine tip nozzle on your Nuvo drops, just as you would with a normal Nuvo drop. Shake it down to the bottom, and then you can literally draw with it. So you might have had like tried these kind of things out on acrylic paints and stuff before. I do love having like a fine nozzle on acrylic paint, because you can like draw details in that you might not have been able to before. I know I'm kind of showing off this fine tip nozzle and it's not in the kit, but I thought it might be a nice it's a nice kind of accent to add on to this. So you can do just tracing around like that. You can do the little dots to make it look like it kind of skipped a little bit. Or if you don't have the fine tip nozzle, you're not interested in them, but you want to be able to create something like this, you can just do it with the normal Nuvo drops as well. It doesn't have to be the fine tip bottle. You do just get a much finer, more precise line with the fine tip bottle. It's going to dry quicker because you're putting less product out, and obviously you're going to use less product as well, and it will also be flatter. If you have the fine tip nozzle, this is going to stay quite raised when you're using it straight from the bottle. But if you're using with the fine tip precision nozzle, less is coming out of the bottle, so it is going to be a flatter application. Whereas straight from the bottle, it is going to be slightly more of a raised and slightly more blobby, less precise kind of effect, but it still gives a cool effect, so you can definitely do both. And then to do that kind of circling effect that I did on the other card, you literally just keep squeezing the bottle just a tiny bit, not too much, and then you can just draw your circles as well. I just love doing that normally with Nuvo drops, whether it is over a stencil background, just to create a background generally. It's just a nice different way of using your Nuvo drops as well. So I hope you enjoyed this unboxing video for Tonic Craft Kit number 64. If you want any more details on that card that I showed you previously, my tutorial video will be up tomorrow, so you can see exactly how to create that background with the ink pads, the drops and the glacier paste. If you're interested in getting hold of Tonic Craft Kit number 64, there will be affiliate links in the description box below the video that will take you to the Tonic websites as well if you want to get hold of them. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!